Hello chess fans and welcome to Chess 5, and today I'm going to show you the game between two top players, and those two top players name is Alireza Firouzja versus Levon Aronian, and this game is from the Goldmoney Asian Rapid Prelims 2021, and this game is going to be very crazy and interesting. You are going to see attack by both the sides, and this game is going to be very interesting, and let's see who won the game. So without any further ado, let's dive into the game. And so Alireza Firouzja with the white pieces started with 1 e4, and Levon Aronian with the black pieces replied with standard 1 e5. And here Alireza played knight to c3. Here comes knight to f6. Here white usually plays knight to f3, but I think here Alireza wanted to play something different, so he chose knight to c3. Here comes knight to f6. Here comes bishop to c4 by Alireza, simply developing the pieces. And here comes a very nice move by Levon Aronian, knight into e4, and saying, okay, you can grab my knight, and I'm going to push d5. So if Alireza would have took the knight on e4, then comes a very powerful move d5, and now black is having a very nice center. So if the game would have continued from this position, then white would have played bishop d3. Here comes g into e4, and after bishop into e4, here perhaps black can even play f5, kick the bishop from the e4 square. So after bishop f3, here comes bishop to perhaps g6, simply developing the piece and preparing to castle, and black is better in this position. So that's why after knight into e5, Alireza Firouzja, at the place of capturing of the knight, he decided to play queen h4, a very nice move and the best move. So basically here white is saying, okay, I'm not going to capture your knight on e4, but I'm going to threaten your mate on f7. So let's see who will checkmate first. So after queen to h5, here black played knight to d6, and the idea of playing knight to d6 here is, here the knight is no longer attacking the knight on e4, and now the knight on d6 is attacking the bishop on c4, as well as protecting the pawn on f7 from getting checkmated. So after knight to d6, here white played bishop to b3 because the bishop was obviously attacked on c4. Here comes bishop to e7, developing the piece, and here comes queen into e5. Here white got his pawn back. Here comes castle by Levon Aronian. Here we have a powerful d4 by Alireza Firouzja. The idea of playing d4 is very simple. First of all, getting more space in the center, and the second idea here is now the bishop is getting to develop on perhaps f4 on even e3. So after d4, black played, here comes knight to c6, developing the piece and also attacking the queen on e5. So queen have to move. Here comes queen to f4 by Alireza Firouzja. And here comes knight to a5, directly going for the bishop on b3, because the bishop on b3 is very strong. So obviously black wants to trade the knight from the bishop on b3. So after knight to a5, here white played bishop to d5, moving the bishop, and perhaps the plan could be to play bishop f3, knight e2, and perhaps short castle, and it's a very standard structure. So after bishop to d5, here black played knight e2. And I think many of you were thinking that why both the sides are moving their pieces regularly, just not developing the pieces but moving their pieces again and again. That's the point in the high level chess. You have to at the place of developing the pieces fast, you need to like check the positions, because in the high level positions matters a lot. And the idea of playing knight to e8 in this position here perhaps black can go d6 in the future, and also perhaps black is preparing to play c6, attacking the bishop followed by d5, and black would have a very nice pawn structure, and then he would simply develop his pieces, perhaps bishop e6, perhaps knight f6, and black is doing perfect. So that was the reason knight to e8 was played in the game. So after knight to e8, here white played bishop to f3 back, because the black was threatening to play c6. That's why. So here comes bishop f3 by Alireza. Here we have bishop to b4 by Aronian, spinning up the knight, and there could be some serious threats of playing queen e7 check, as the king haven't castled yet. So after bishop b4, here white played, he pushes the pawn to d5, and the idea of pushing the pawn to d5 here first of all, white is asking black bishop on b4. What do you want to do? Do you want to go back to d6, or do you want to capture the knight on c3, because the queen on f4 is attacking the bishop on b4 and also gaining more space in the center, which is also a very crucial point. So after d5, here black decided to capture the knight. Here comes b into c3. Here comes b6 by Levon Aronian. He is not scared of pawn push because nothing is going to happen. He can simply play c6 and it's a fine position. That's after b6. In this position, at the place of pushing the pawn, Alireza play knight to e2. Here comes bishop to a6 by Levon Aronian, getting this whole diagonal, and the bishop on a6 is very nicely placed. So here comes castle by Alireza. Queen to f6, asking for a queen trade and also putting some pressure on the c3 pawn. Not now, because although knight is protecting the pawn, but there could be some threats after bishop captures the knight on e2. So after queen to f6, here white played queen to a4, not going to trade the queens. So here comes knight to d6 by Levon Aronian, developing the piece and also saying, okay, I'm stopping your d6, because now it would have been a very strong move for white. So knight d6 was a nice move. Here comes queen into d7, and white is grabbing a pawn, and at the place of grabbing a pawn, black got development. So after queen to d7, now white is a pawn up. So here black played rook to e8, and now putting double pressure on the knight. And in this position, Alireza Firouzja with the white pieces played bishop to e3, which looks like a fine move, but this was the blunder in the game. In this position, at the place of playing bishop to e3, he should have played rook to e1. And the idea of playing rook e1 here is, first of all, the knight was pinned, because if the knight would have moved, the rook was hanging on f1. And the second idea here is, now the rook and the bishop is protecting the knight on e2, and it's a fine position. And now there could be some plans of playing bishop to e3, perhaps followed by bishop to d4 to attack the queen on f6. But you are going to see the difference. Here white played bishop e3 first, and now comes a very powerful move by black. As you can see, the knight on a5 is not doing much. Yeah, so why not put it in the game? So here comes knight a to c4 by Levon Aronian, putting more pressure on the bishop on e3, attacking the bishop on e3 with the knight as well as the rook. So in this position, here white played bishop to d4, attacking the queen on f6. The queen have to move from the f6 square, but the queen didn't move, and Aronian played knight to e5 because the knight on c4 was not doing much. So he decided to put the knight on e5, and now threatening to capture the bishop on f3, which is a very serious threat. So after knight to e5, here Alireza played queen to h3 back, and it's currently black who is winning in this position, because after queen to h3, here comes knight into f3 check. Here comes g into f3, and as you can see in this position, white pawn structure has already been damaged, and there is a serious pressure on the knight as well as the rook. So it's actually completely winning position for black. So for now, the bishop is attacking the queen on f6. The queen have to move. Here comes queen g5 check. Here the king went to h1, and in this position, many of you were thinking, okay, now black will capture the knight on e2, which looks the most natural move. But this is not the right move, because even if you try to capture the knight, if you take with the knight with the bishop, now comes a very powerful move, rook to g1. And the idea of playing rook g1 here is, as you can see, the bishop on d4 is targeting the pawn on g7, and now by playing rook g1, the rook is also targeting the pawn on g7, and the queen is also attacked. So queen have to move, and g7 pawn falls, and it's going to be game over for black. And as well, the queen is attacking the h7 pawn. So after capturing the g7 pawn, queen will also capture the h7 pawn, and it's going to be checkmate. That's why here black can't actually capture the knight on e2. So the best move in this position for black here is to play f6. The idea of playing f6 here is very simple. Now the bishop is no longer protecting the attacking the g7 pawn, and now black is ready to capture the knight on e2. But at the place of f6 in the game, Levon Aronian decided to capture the pawn on d5, which was a huge blunder, and this move gave Alireza Firouzja a better position. It's more likely equal. But now comes a very strong move, rook g1, and the idea is very simple. The rook as well as the bishop is attacking the pawn on g7, so the only natural move come to everyone's mind is to pushes the pawn to f6 right now, because now bishop is no longer attacking the g7 pawn. But now comes a very powerful move, but let's see if you will be able to find it. Alireza Firouzja missed this move, so feel free to pause the video and try to find the best move for white in this position, which Alireza Firouzja also missed. So okay, so all those who have found the right move, congratulations on finding the only move for white which wins this position. Here comes a very nice move by white. Here comes white will capture the pawn on g7 with the rook, sacrificing the rook. So here black is not having much to do. He can't go to h8 because queen will simply capture the h7 pawn and it will be checkmate. So king have to capture the rook on g7, and now comes the very powerful move, rook to g1 check. So basically king is having two squares, either to go on h8 or either to go on f7. So first of all, he can't go to f7 because now it's mate in 2. First here comes queen into h7 check. King is forced to go to e6, and after queen e6 here comes knight to f4 checkmate. It looks very nice checkmate. Yeah, queen is covering all the squares and knight is attacking, and the bishop is also covering, so all the squares is being locked down and king have been checkmated. That's why king cannot go to f7 and king have to go to h8, and after going king to h8 here comes knight to f4, a very powerful move by white. And the idea is very simple. First of all, the knight is attacking the queen on d5, and the threat of white is to perhaps play knight to g6, a very serious threat. So the best move for black in this position is to go back with queen on f7, and here comes knight to g6 check. Here you can't move the king to g5 because even if you try to move the king, here comes a very strong move, knight to e5 check. And the idea is very simple. The rook is attacking the king on g8, and knight is also threatening to capture the queen on f7 in the next move. So that's why after knight to g6 check, the best move for black in this position is to capture the knight on g6, and after rook into g6, if you look at the material, it's like everything is equal, just it's like queen versus two minor pieces. But blocking on h8 is terribly weak. There are many ideas for white in this position. Perhaps white can even capture the pawn on f6, perhaps rook h6. The h7 pawn is hanging, and it is completely winning position for Alireza. But all the rook into g7 was definitely not easy to find, and Alireza Firouzja missed this move. And at the place of capturing of the pawn on g7, he decided to play knight to f4, which gave Levon Aronian a completely winning advantage, because now comes a very powerful move, queen to f5, and nothing is hanging and nothing is happening. Black is completely winning. Here after queen to f5, here other place of trading the queens, here Alireza decided to play queen to h6, because if you try to trade the queens, after queen trade knight takes, if you look at the position, white pawn structure is terribly ugly. We have just 2 pawn islands, like 4 pawn islands, and if you look at black pawn structure is very solid and very well placed, and perhaps black can even play c5 in the future. That's why black is winning positionally completely, but all the material it's equal. So at the place of capturing of the queen, he decided to play queen to h6, putting more pressure on the Levon Aronian. It looks like white is putting pressure on the black pieces, but nothing is happening and black is going to win completely. So let's see how Levon Aronian finished this game. So after queen h6, the idea is very simple. White is now threatening to capture the g7 pawn, and it's going to be checkmate for black. So black played rook f7, protecting the g7 pawn. He comes rook to g3 by Alireza Firouzja, trying to bring another rook to g1 and to put more pressure on the g7 pawn. So here comes queen into c2, grabbing a pawn. So here comes knight to h5 by Alireza, bringing his knight into the game, and now there are many threats. Perhaps knight into, perhaps bishop into, perhaps rook can even capture the pawn, perhaps even knight can even capture the pawn, and there are various threats. But there is only single move which wins for black in this position, and except that move, the game is equal or white is even winning. And that move Levon Aronian was able to find, which is knight to f5, and it looks also very natural in this position as the knight is attacking the queen on h6 and also attacking the bishop on d4. So this move was fun, and now Levon Aronian is completely winning. In the game, knight into f6 check was played, which looks very natural. Here the pawn cannot capture the knight as the pawn is pinned. So black captured the knight with the rook. Here comes rook into g7 by Alireza Firouzja, and his knight simply captured the rook. And everyone who is thinking, why not queen, she'll capture the rook on f6, what's happening? But now coming a knight into g3 check, and the rook is also hanging on g3, and after h into g3, the queen is dead on f3. That's why queen cannot capture the rook on f6. So that's why rook into g7 was played, and after knight into g7, queen into f6, here comes queen to g6 back by Levon Aronian. And in this position, if you will count the material, it looks like black is a piece plus. So after queen to g6, here in the game rook g1 was played by white, doing his final drive. But let's see if this move you will be able to find. There is only single move for black in this position which wins for black. As you can see that the rook and the bishop and the queen is attacking the g7 knight, and it's overloaded. So let's see the only single move will you be able to find. So okay, so if you found this move, you are a genius, because this move is definitely not easy to find. But by playing next move, Alireza Firouzja with the white pieces resigned the game, and Levon Aronian with the black pieces won the game. And the one and only, the move is queen into g1 check, capturing up the rook on g1. And by playing queen into g1, Alireza Firouzja resigned the game on move number 30, and Levon Aronian won the game. So many of you were thinking, why white resigned the game, why white should have not captured the queen? Because now comes a very powerful move, rook to e1 check, and king is having only one square to go. So here comes king g1, king g2, and now comes another powerful move, bishop to f1 check, and king is basically having one square on g3. It can come back to h1 on g1, but it doesn't matter because simply bishop h3 is a checkmate. The bishop is covering the g2 square. So that's why king g3 is the fourth move, and now comes a very natural move, knight to h5 check, and now the queen is forked. So king have to move, king h4, and after knight into f6, bishop into f6, black is a piece plus. So that's why after queen into g1 check, in this position, Alireza Firouzja with the white pieces designed the game, and Levon Aronian with the black pieces won the game. Oh, fantastic game by both the players. Like when Alireza Firouzja was attacking by playing knight to h5 on the move number 26, it definitely looks very dangerous for black. But the patience Levon Aronian has is incredible. He didn't care much and simply played knight to f5, and he won the game. So it was a fantastic game by both the players. Both the players played very well, but in the end, Levon Aronian took the game. So guys, if you also like this epic game by both the players, so then please subscribe to my channel and also like to my channel. Please tell me in the comment box how much will you rate this video from 1 to 10, and I will come up with these new videos for you, so please stay tuned. Thank you for watching and bye bye.